Welcome to 412 Sports Talk, the number one podcast for Pittsburgh sports. Steelers, we talk it. Penguins, we talk it. Pirates, yeah, we talk it. With the biggest guests.
Bob Pompiani, Pittsburgh legend. Mayor Bill Peduto, the mayor of the city of Pittsburgh, is on with us. Doran Dickerson, West Allegheny legend.
Trey Essex, welcome.
Available on iTunes and Spotify. Hosted by Mad Chad Nolan.
It over too much. Well, now he's not turning it over at all.
And Eddie Provident.
We've got the best team in football.
And now, 412 Sports Talk.
All right, well, welcome everybody to a new edition of the 412 Sports Talk podcast brought to you by MCM Studios. As always, from a different location, I am your host, Eddie Provident, and with me is the, what are you this week, Chad? You are the,
I'm going to go.
You're the next Boston Bruins head coach.
The
way they're talking over there, up there, man. Mad Chad, the next Boston Bruins head coach.
Yeah, we're going to have Danny Shirey on from Penn's blog this week, and we had a ton of people message us about what they want us to talk about. But one thing I want to ask him is what he saw from the Bruins' point of view, like watching that series as a Pens fan, and like how it compared to how the Penguins performed. So I think that's going to be something that we're gonna bring up and talk to him about. And then also we have the show's brought to you by MCM Studios as always. And Eddie, tell them with a tease that we have a big announcement next week.
Yeah, so I can't go into details.
Yes,
but there's a big announcement coming. It's going to be some new show changes. It's going to be we're going to call it the come up. We got hopefully by next week we'll be able to announce the come up. But we've got some big things coming, and I'm excited about it. I know Chad's excited, but he called me on Sunday twice. I didn't have his number saved because he had a new one. I was at a high school football game, All Star Game, and I'm like, who the heck is calling me? And
wait a minute, was that the same game that events took place? Yeah. Oh, were you there when that happened?
Oh, yes, I was there. I'll tell.
Why didn't you tell me?
I'll tell the story in the next segment. But basically, I almost jumped onto the field because I was so excited about this news we have to share. So we're going to have that on, and can we at least tell them who the guest is going to be next week?
Yeah. So next week we're going to do a crossover show with Zach Smith and Tyler
Weeks,
from around the 412, a crossover show. It's gonna be weird because it's gonna be around the 412 Sports Talk show, around the 412 Sports Talk, basically.
Yeah.
But they're gonna be our first guests, and just the show is going to be the same but different because, you guys will see. There will be a big announcement. So just look on Twitter.
There's a big announcement's coming. Just keep an eye out.
But honestly, we got Danny Shirey coming on, so let's no. You know what? I was going to bring up Big Ben comments, but we got 6 minutes. Let's talk about what happened at the All Star Game. What happened?
Okay, so here's what went down. As most of you know, I'm on the coaching staff for West Mifflin High School. I used to be on the coaching staff with Steel Valley.
Mm-hmm.
Coach Rod Steele, who's the head coach at West Mifflin, used to be at Steel Valley. He's my cousin. So I kind of, I hopped on with him, started off doing film. I do a little bit with the JV offensive line and stuff like that. But I pretty much run the film program at West Mifflin. So we had three of our old players, one of our West Mifflin kids and two kids from Steel Valley that were playing in this game. Shout out to all three of them because they're all three of them. Eshawn Carter at Woodland Hills, Diego Bledsoe at Gateway, and Jay Sean Schofield at West Mifflin. All three of them are going to the next level to play college football. So shout out to those guys. But basically, what happened? So we're on the sideline. It was myself, my brother, Coach Rod's son, my 15-year-old 6'4", 312-pound cousin that everybody saw on Twitter, Rico, and then my little cousin Jimmy. We're all on the sideline watching the game, having a good time. There's about a minute left in the first half of the football game, and just a bunch of gunshots. And my gut reaction from where the gunshots are coming from was that it was a couple of little kids playing with fireworks. But as you kind of look up, and thankfully it wasn't in the stadium. It had nothing to do with the game. It was just, a drive-by shooting right next to the football field, which if you've ever been to McKees Rocks, if you've ever been to Sto Rox High School, the football field is basically like dug into the community. Like it's just a part of the community. So, so there was, catty corner to us, there was a drive-by shooting. And, I actually saw the car. It was a blue car drive past, and, we heard a bunch of shots fired, and thankfully nobody was killed. I believe the person who was shot was only shot in the leg and was taken to the hospital immediately. The EMS on site for the football game was able to drive through the field and up the driveway to get to the crime scene, and actually, was able to get there and like perform whatever they needed to perform to take care of this person. I don't know that they found the shooter, but again, it had nothing to do with the football game.
Yeah, from what I saw.
Yeah, and I want to make that perfectly clear, because this was such a good showing for these kids. It was all senior high school football players, so it was literally their last high school football game. And if you think about it, like I'll shout Diego out on this one, Diego Bledsoe. He's going to Bluefield State down in West Virginia. Diego Bledsoe is a senior this year, so he lost his football season last year
because of COVID. The year before that, the Whippeals suspended him for a year, ruled him ineligible for a year because they considered his transfer from Steel Valley to Gateway athletic and not anything to do with schooling or his family situation. So he lost a year as a junior, lost a year to COVID. Played 5 games his senior year, and then gets to play his last high school football game in this All-Star game, and it gets cut short at halftime because of a shooting. But again, it was a safety concern for everybody there. The police shut it down. It didn't have anything to do with the football game. It didn't have anything to do with the stadium. I know that some news outlets were getting that wrong. I know some originally were reporting that it happened inside the stadium. The guys who put the football game on, the organization, I can't remember the guy's name, but the organization that put it on, and the coaches and the players, everything was so top notch about this. It was just a shame that it happened. So thankfully everybody at the game was safe. It was just kind of one of those, scary. I wouldn't even call it a scary situation. Like, you knew what was going on, just got down and waited it out, and then everybody left. Security cleared the place out. But yeah, it was an eventful Sunday night. For sure. Between the news I gave you and that happened, I'm glad everybody, nobody was killed and you're safe. So that's all good. It's a shame that, it's unfair, but it puts a dark mark on that. They're like, see what happens with these city football games and stuff like that. And that's unfair. Yeah. One of the guys watching the game was, I believe he's on city council for McKees Rocks. And I felt terrible for him because he was so excited and so proud that this All-Star game was in his community and in his town. And he just, like, when it was happening and like after it happened and when they called the game, the poor guy just looked gutted. I felt awful for him. And, it sucks that people just don't care when communities try to do good things like this. There's some people who just don't care. So. Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, I'm glad you're safe. Glad you're still with us. We got the big news. We're going to go forward. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to hear from our sponsor. And then coming up on the show, don't go anywhere because we got Danny Shirey from the Pens blog. And literally, we're going to talk your ass off when it comes to hockey. Like, it's going to be no full throttle hockey. So we'll be right back.
Hey, 412 Sports Talk family, what's going on? It's your guy, Eddie P. I'm sitting in MCM Studios right now with our sponsor, my man Mike Hitt. Mike, what's going on, brother?
What's up, bro? 412 Sports Talk Podcast, Pittsburgh, PA. What is up?
What we're doing is, we're a local podcast. We talk Pittsburgh sports. We're completely supported by people that are either from Pittsburgh or have ties to Pittsburgh. And even our sponsor, MCM Studios, is over in Allentown, in the heart of the city of Pittsburgh. But I wanted to bring you into the studio so you could see what Mike's got going on, and you can see a little bit of, what happens behind the scenes here at MCM Studios. Mm-hmm. So, Mike, what are you working on right now, man?
I'm working with always a stable of talented artists whether they're from Pittsburgh, they come to Pittsburgh to come to MCM Studios, they move here from out of town, whatever the case may be, a young, old, guy, girl, pop, rock, reggae, R&B, trap music. You know, I just work with a lot of guys that need the love and the attention and the direction in order to get their sound and their business together and their whole artistry, you know, in a position that is the quality and the vision that they were looking for. I kind of just help them bring all that together. So they're like, oh, you know, or I would have been lost for the next 3 years if you wouldn't have said, hey, go do this, or sing your song like this, or write a song like this, or this is a good look for you as an artist. That's really what MCM Studios does, and what I have going on is just continually helping artists. If they get famous, they get famous. If they don't, they don't. But just helping them along on this artistic journey so they can look back, and it felt like it was worth it.
Yes. I know how much it means to be a musician and need that backup. And I'll be honest with you, Mike has been a big part of the business side of 412 Sports Talk and how much we've grown as a business too, helping us with the legal side of things, giving us all the tips that he's learned in 10, 11 years of business. So, like I said, I just wanted to get you guys to take a look at the studio, hear it from Mike himself, and just get a little bit of the behind the scenes of one of our sponsors, our first sponsor, MCM Studios. And you can check them out at 412mcmstudios.com. You can check them out on Facebook at MCM Studios Pittsburgh. Check Mike out on Twitter at Mike Hitman with 2 T's. Let's build this Pittsburgh community because there's a lot of cool people, a lot of talented people, and a lot of great things going on in the city. Mike, you got anything else to leave them with?
You know, support the people around you that are doing cool things. If you can see that they're serious and they're dedicated and they're putting the time and they're making the investment in themselves, at least make, at the very minimum, the investment of believing in them. That's what I did for 412 Sports Talk Podcast. That's what I do at the studio with the artist. Just look at your life as one big investment, and I really think by doing that, we can all help bring everybody around us up.
So there it is. I hope you guys enjoyed this little mini tour. We'll be back with stuff like this. In the meantime, again, I'm Eddie Provident. From Mad Chad Nolan, from my man Mike Hitt. We'll catch you later.
Peace.
All right, well, welcome back to the 412 Sports Talk Podcast. This is Eddie P coming to you live from the front porch because of the power outage here in Monroeville.
That's how dedicated you are.
Right? my main man, Mad Chad, with me. And then we've got the fresh cut Danny Shirey, man.
He came in here looking us bad.
He came to show us up today, man. Danny is going to talk all things Penguins with us for a little while. So, Danny, how's it going, man? What do you think about these NHL playoffs so far, bud?
It's going well. Thank you guys for having me. And, you know, I didn't have a ton of fun watching the Bruins and Islanders because that was just a whole lot of pain all around. But the Colorado-Vegas series has been some great hockey, and I'm going to be sad when it's over.
Before we get – go ahead, Rich.
No. I was going to say, just a quick question because I had people from Twitter, they wanted to get Danny's thoughts on stuff. You brought up the Islanders-Bruins. Do you have like any different thoughts, like in hindsight, of how the Penguins performed compared to the Bruins on that?
Not necessarily. So I haven't been as high on the Bruins as a lot of people were throughout this season. Just for whatever reason, they've always been a tough matchup for the Penguins. Mm-hmm. But in terms of, you know, the Islanders playing the Penguins and then the Islanders playing the Bruins, you know, I'm not taking a whole lot away from that and being like, oh, well, the Penguins might have just dominated the Bruins. And if that was
right,
I don't necessarily know that would have been the case. I think it kind of just more so boils down to that the Bruins might have been a little overhyped coming into that series.
So my question was going to be, Danny, and this is the head shaker for me. How, like, you're an analytics guy. We Chad and I both are more of the analytic leaning kind of people. We don't know it as in depth as you do, but I'll speak for myself. I don't know it as in depth as you do. How do you explain a team like the Islanders?
Well, I mean, so there's so many different things that can be considered analytics. So it's very easy to say, well, analytics can't necessarily explain that or this or that or whatever. But the Islanders, if you're looking at just some pretty basic team level, analytics stats, they weren't all that horrible. They were pretty good at putting the puck in the back of the net this year. Obviously, we know how well they're able to defend the front of the net and the slot area. And those things kind of show up in the analytics. And, at the end of the day, as much as we don't want to admit it, hockey is extremely random. There's a ton of variance and luck involved, and it's not out of or even so much out of character for a team that is as structured as the Islanders to see the variance and that luck kind of play more to their side.
Yeah, I hate how like Pierre McGuire, because Hunter Hodes was like, please just trash. I was like, what do you guys want to hear on this podcast? And Hunter Hodes was like, just trash Pierre McGuire the whole episode. I was like, well,
according to him, the Edmonton Oilers, that analytic darling over there in Western Canada.
But that's my problem with like the hockey media guys, like the gatekeeping guys that are like, they try to take shots at analytics at any time, is like you said, like the Islanders Penguins, I mean, it really came down to shooting percentage and save percentage. Like those were the main factors of the series. Like that's analytics. That is analytics. Yeah, one team was getting saves, the other team wasn't.
We're at a point now where it's just so mind-numbing to hear people go, well, analytics have a place, but it's not the whole story. And it's like, well, okay, what do you even consider analytics to be? Because I've seen people complain about, using goals rates, for example, goals per hour, like that is not any analytics at all. But all of a sudden, because you're turning it into a rate stat, that all of a sudden it's something that you can't use. So it's just kind of mind numbing and almost like, just what are you doing here?
Well,
so
the worst is they'll like, again, some of these people, they'll dismiss, goals saved above expected and goals for expected, but then they'll be like, this guy deserves the Norris or Selke because of his plus minus, and I'm like, no, you can't dismiss analytics and then trot out plus minus as your main argument or hits, for God's sakes. To me, I've always felt that the biggest problem that like these older hockey guys is I just think they don't like the fact that we don't have to go to them to know the game. Like when I was younger, unless I was traveling back in time, I would read the Post-Gazette or the Tribune Review after Penguins games and look at the box score. And then the only like opinions I would have was based on a box score and the beat writers telling me what happened in the game and what the players said. So we had to form our opinion on that. I don't think they like the fact that you and I and everybody else has access to all this stuff and that we can watch all the teams and then put all the data in, because honestly, it kind of makes some of them obsolete.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that. And I think we've all, at least on Twitter, kind of talked about, some of the journalists that are kind of going by the wayside right now because, they're just saying blatant things that are objectively false. And you can only say so many things that are outwardly wrong so many times before people are just going to stop engaging and stop paying attention. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we've got, ill will toward these people. I'd be more than like, if they, I don't need people to use analytics or even be in depth with what they're doing, but it at least needs to be somewhat accurate or have some basis other than you just going off of some preconceived notion that is absolutely false.
Exactly.
So Danny, let's move into some Penguins talk because that's what everybody wants to hear about. Let's start off with this, and then let's start off with Gino because that should be the quick one.
Is he gonna get traded?
Yeah, and then we'll get into expansion draft talk and we'll get into everything else. So I'm gonna go through the top 3 absurd things I've heard about Evgeny Malkin this offseason already. Number 1, that he's soft.
Oh yeah.
That he's always hurt and soft. Number 2, that the Penguins are going to trade him. We're just going to ignore the fact that he has a no trade clause, that the Penguins are trading him. And then number 3, that they should talk him into doing what Marc-Andre Fleury did and waiving his no trade clause so that he would be available for Seattle in the expansion draft.
That a real article, by the way.
Yeah. Can I get your in-depth analysis on all three of those, Danny?
My in-depth analysis is that no matter how you cut it, the Penguins are not going to be a better hockey team without Malkin. It's just as simple as that.
Not to mention he has a major knee injury, so like literally his and his contract's up, so his value could not be lower at any point in his career than right now.
Yeah, and I mean, especially with all the notions that are going around about him, even league-wide, like when the Penguins were still in the playoffs, we even heard NBC analysts talking about how he hasn't been as great and blah, blah, blah. And that's true. He wasn't as great this season, but, his perceived value is got to be even lower than what his actual value is right now. And with his knee injury and his age, I don't see how you're going to bring in anywhere near the value that he actually provides on the ice.
The guy plays on one knee and leads all the forwards besides Jeff Carter in points, and he's soft. I love that. All right, so Zach Smith. So keeping on Gino. So around the 412 guys, they want to know: does Gino's knee surgery force the Pens' hand in protecting Jeff Carter, or were they going to protect Carter? Do you have them protecting Carter? Anyways, regardless.
So originally, when I first heard the report that the Penguins were going to protect Carter, I was like, oh no, like what are we doing here? But I definitely think with the news of Malkin's surgery, they basically don't have a choice now, because unless they feel sure.
Did you go back to sleep?
I did sleep on it a few times, yes. But unless they feel comfortable going into the season with McCann as their second line center, which I would personally feel comfortable with.
So would I.
Yeah, so I'm comfortable with that. You're comfortable with that. But McCann got, I think it was just over 14 minutes a game in the Islanders series. So that suggests that they're probably not comfortable with him in that role going into next season. So I don't see any scenario where you can't protect Carter.
So we have you on the show here. I don't know if you had an article coming up about this that you were going to do, but let's just go. Like, give us your seven. Give us your seven that you think. We don't have to do who they will. Who are you protecting and who are you leaving unprotected?
Yeah. So personally, I'm protecting Crosby, Malkin, Gensel, Carter, Rust, McCann. And I can't believe I'm saying it, but I'm going to protect Kapanen. Okay.
No, that makes sense. So that means they would have Bluger, Tanev, and Aston Reese all unexposed.
As well as Zucker and Rodriguez and Gaudreau are obviously free agents. I don't think those are guys that are going to get picked over Zucker or Bluger maybe. But with where we're at right now, I'm pretty sure they're going to lose somebody from that Bluger line.
I mean, yeah, it would make sense for Seattle. If I'm Seattle, I'm taking Bluger or Tanev, one of those two.
See, I'm a little different than you, and I get what you're saying about Carter, but I don't think they're going to take Carter if he's available, like even if he's there. So
I don't think they would either. Actually,
I'm going Crosby, Malkin, Gensel, Rust. So there's my four. I'm going Kapanen as well.
Yeah, can't lose him for nothing.
McCann would be my 6.
Absolutely.
And Aston Reese or Bluger would be my 7. Probably lean towards Aston Reese.
I don't see a
just
Seattle
because
team.
Of his defensive ability.
Why would Seattle take a 36? What is Jeff Carter? 35? 30, he's going to be 36. Why would they take him? I mean, besides name recognition, and maybe they were like, we need some leadership. I don't know. That's what's crazy about this is we don't know what they're thinking, but my mind really can't comprehend them drafting a 36-year-old Jeff Carter over a lower costing like Zach Aston because Seattle is supposedly going to be very like pro analytics, so I'm imagining like a Tanev or a Bluger would be very enticing to them.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you and would have a tough time imagining them actually taking Carter. But at the same time, if they do end up taking Carter for whatever reason, that's going to put you in a tough spot.
Yeah,
that's true. I mean, the best case scenario to me would be for Zucker. And and this was another question, and I agree with this. Even if Seattle doesn't take Zucker, I think that's a contract you try to move this summer if you're Ron Hextall, right?
I've got such mixed feelings because the Penguins traded for Zucker. He obviously scored at a pretty good rate playing next to Crosby, but his play driving impacts had really fallen off a chart because when he was in Minnesota, he had a history of being a very good play driver, even at both ends of the ice. That kind of fell off his last season in Minnesota, and then he came over to the Penguins, and those trends continued. But after the season, I went back and looked, and when he wasn't playing with Jack Johnson, his play driving numbers were outstanding. So I made sure to hop on Twitter and tell everybody else, get on the Zucker hype train. He's going to dominate next to Crosby this year. Well, he never ended up getting a chance next to Crosby, played next to Malkin, wasn't all that great, ended up getting hurt. But the one thing about him, though, he was still one of the Penguins' top 5v5 goal scorers this year, which is something that they didn't have a ton of from the top of their lineup. So I'm not exactly sure that, he's going to return to what I thought he might be, but I don't think it's necessarily a guy that you have to move.
So here's one, and I floated this a couple of weeks ago, and I mixed reviews. I'm not saying this because I don't like Brian Rust. I'm saying this because he's going to be 30 and he's going to probably make $5 or $6 million at minimum next year on his next contract. Would you, if you're on the Zucker train, so we'll leave him to the side. We've got to clear up some cap somewhere. Would you tie Rust to, say, a Matheson contract and try to, maybe just get some picks and clear up some cap space if there's anybody that would be willing to make a trade like that?
I don't think I would be, and that's solely because I think that the Penguins, I know they've been going all in every year for the past however many years now, but if there was ever a time that they had to go all in, it has to be this season. Crosby's going to be 34, Letang's going to be 35, Malkin's going to be 35, going on 36, right? So I don't necessarily see a scenario where, a 37-year-old Malkin is going to be competing for a cup. The league is just getting too young and too fast. And at that point, with all the injuries he's gone through, I feel like they have to go for it this upcoming season. And I think they're a better team with Rust than without him.
Well, I'm not a guy that would want to trade Rust either, but I think right now there is a realistic chance that either he or, God forbid, Gensel does get moved because, and Rust would be the most likely guy because his contract's up after next year, and I don't think they're going to resign him anyway. But, Ron Hextall did say that they want to get bigger. Now, we've had these arguments about bigger. We follow each other on Twitter. People know how I feel about it. Size, if you can play, size is a plus, but size by itself, it means nothing. Now, I asked you the other day when I was like, hey, you want to jump on the show? I was like, is there some forwards out there that would give them what everybody is looking for in terms of front net presence, adding a little bit of size, but still not losing anything in terms of speed and skill that can play in the top six? Were you able to find anybody that would be a realistic target, either free agency or via trade?
So I actually, after you said that to me, I went on Cap Friendly, took a look at the list of every single unrestricted free agent, and there's one player that was mildly enticing that kind of fits the description. He's not somebody that's going to be able to play in the top six.
Okay.
You could probably play him on the third line, but he's just going to be another, bottom six, maybe a middle six guy, and that's Joel Armia.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I've seen him play. Yeah, he's a decent player. He's definitely not a top six forward, but
yeah. See, my pipe dream is Zach Hyman, but I think he's going to be way overpriced.
Yeah,
and that's not giving it. Well, no. How about Eddie? So Eddie had he's on the Jordan Greenway bandwagon. As far
I love Jordan Greenway.
Just a top 9-4, maybe not top six, but I mean, the guy, he's a giant.
See, here was my scenario, Danny. You trade because Minnesota has a couple guys coming off their payroll this year. So there's your trade partner for Rust and Matheson. Unload a bunch of cap for Jordan Greenway and picks. Put Greenway on your third line and take that cap space and try to sign somebody like Brendan Saad or Zach Hyman or somebody, a bigger power forward to fill that Patrick Hornquist role. on your top 6. That would be my dream scenario. I don't think they'll do it. And I think that Hextall's been pretty clear that he's not going to make a ton of moves. So I don't see anything major like that happening, but that would be my pipe dream
are you a fan of Greenway's game?
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know a ton about Greenway. From what I've actually watched of him, he seems like a pretty good player and he's still only, what, like 23 years old?
He's young. Yeah.
He's 23. He was averaged just under a half a point a game. Was a little bit of a disappointment as far as his offensive numbers go for Minnesota. But I think putting him in a situation where he'd be on a line with Jeff Carter and Jared McCann would like really do him some good. So,
and as far as I remember about him, I think his play driving wasn't all that great this past season. Like I said, I don't know a ton about him and haven't taken the time to look into it. But if he is on a line with McCann and Carter on that third line, I don't see any reason why that wouldn't be a recipe for success.
But also, people are so enticed with size. But again, to me, it doesn't really like your height doesn't. It's like Blake Coleman is another guy that like he doesn't play like he's 5'11". Like he just doesn't. He play like he's the same height as Jake Gensel, but like you wouldn't think that if you watched them both play. So I hope that Hextall. I know he has Brian Burke and the fans in his ear, like we need size. But I was glad to hear him say, "Listen, for all these forwards that can put up 40 plus points and are like 6'2", 6'3". They're very expensive and hard to come by. Like we talked about Matthew Tkachuk. Like that's a pipe dream and you're going to overpay for a guy like that. So my hope is that he looks at performance. And if a guy has an edge or, those intangibles that we like, I'm all on board. I would love for a Blake Coleman. And again, the problem with free agency is they're probably going to overpay for whoever they do sign, if they do sign anybody.
Yeah. And, we talk about it all the time, but having size or having certain attributes doesn't make you inherently good at playing hockey. There's so many different ways to get to successful impacts on the ice, and people get so caught up on he's got really good hands when they're completely ignoring his awful skating and his awareness at both ends of the ice. So there's so many more things that go into it than this guy's going to help us because he weighs 15 extra pounds and he's 3 inches taller and is willing to hit people, rather than the guy over there who's 5'10" but can actually play at both ends of the ice.
Yeah, no. Exactly.
Danny, what do you do about the goalie situation? Do you give Tristan Jarry the keys to the car one more time and see what happens? Do you bring somebody in?
What do you
more
think?
More of a proven veteran. And then what do you think? I've been on the Linus Ullmark train. I think you can get him for a decent number. And he actually played really well despite what he was dealing with in Buffalo. I think that's somebody that could come in and compete for the first spot and then basically light a fire under Jarry and put up or shut up.
Yeah, so I wouldn't mind Ullmark at all. That would be fantastic. But my probably spiciest take that I'll have for you guys tonight is that I'm protecting DeSmith over Jarry.
I agree with that. I said that on my live
I can't with the goalies that are going to be available. I can't see them taking out.
Taylor Haas from DK put out a great article today about how like they literally have like a plethora of options to select in the draft when it comes to goalies. Like there's so many starting caliber goalies they can get. So.
Can you actually? That's a good point, Danny. Can you see somebody like a GM like Hextall that was a goalie that kind of knows what it takes to be, a big time goalie, using that as kind of like a little bit of a show me, kind of a little bit of a motivator. If he were to, knowing that he's probably not going to get taken in the expansion draft, purposely not protecting Jarry to kind of say, listen, dude, we're serious about you either figuring it out or you're gone.
Yeah, and that probably boils down to why he's the GM and we're sitting here talking about it, because that's a tough decision that I don't want to have to make. But I could definitely see that. I don't necessarily think that, Seattle would be interested in taking Jarry, especially after that postseason he had. So, you might as well protect him anyway. But then at the same time, they might end up taking DeSmith because, decent backup. Right?
Affordable, decent backup.
But, I think it just boils down to the Penguins have so many good forwards that are they're gonna lose a good forward no matter how you cut it, and I think that's where Seattle's gonna go with that. So I don't think they necessarily have to worry about losing either one of the goalies. So yeah, Eddie, you make a good point that they might as well just give them that vote of confidence and hope for the best.
Yeah, I mean, and Hextall said, at his end of the season presser that he was all in with Jari, but I take everything what those guys say at the end of the season a grain of salt, because what are they going to say? Like, yeah, Tristan Jari sucked. He was the reason we lost. We're going to get rid of him. Like, no, obviously he feels that way. I mean, the biggest issue and hurdle that Hextall has is the cap. I mean, they are not in a great situation with cap, and teams are not going to be interested in bringing in cap because the revenue was down and the cap didn't move up, and it's apparently not going to move up for 4 years. So it's going to be interesting to watch some of these teams pay, like Brandon. I've been on the Brandon Saad hype train, but I'm like, someone's going to pay him like 6 years, $6 million a year. And that's going to, like, with the cap not going up until 2025, that is going to be like a horrendous deal. So, and Hextall, his track record is very conservative. So I can see a thing where maybe he brings Jari back. Maybe he brings in another back 1B goalie, and then maybe signs like a top 9 forward. And that could literally just be the offseason. We're all just going to be like, we had all these great ideas and you didn't do anything, because you might not be able to.
Yeah, and the other thing to keep in mind is that we've been spoiled as Penguin fans, for better or worse. Regardless of whether it was a good transaction or not, the dopamine hit of having your team make a trade or make a signing is just
Hossa, a Ginla. I mean, it just goes on and on. Like Bill Guerin, it goes on and on.
Well, even especially just when the moves that Rutherford made. I mean, everybody knows that he's the guy that is not shy to make moves, and he's willing to do whatever he can to improve his team. So we might be sitting here, with our twiddling our thumbs all summer long, waiting for something to happen that just might not be coming.
And honestly, that might be the best course of action, because, again, aside from the goalie, there wasn't a lot wrong with this team going into the playoffs. They outplayed the Islanders.
They won the division.
They won the division. I mean, all anyone has to do is just go through your Twitter feed during the playoffs to see all of the metrics and how the Penguins outplayed. Like, you and Jesse Marshall were awesome with that kind of stuff. So I really wouldn't, as much as I'd like to see them, get rid of Matheson, do this, do that, bring in Greenway, go sign Saad or Hyman. I don't really think that if everyone's healthy and they only lose 1 or 2 forwards, they don't really need to do anything.
Yeah, and I do think the blue line's going to look a little bit different next year, because we still have to remember that P.O. Joseph is still in the pipeline and probably can't spend another season in the minor leagues. CC needs re-signed, or he's going to be an unrestricted free agent, so he might not be back next year. And I think there are going to be minor changes. Obviously, we're expecting to lose one of those forwards, so there might be a new guy in the mix in that middle 6 or the bottom 6 or what have you. But you're absolutely right. They won the division, and they absolutely outplayed the Islanders despite what happened in goal for them. So this isn't a team that needs a complete makeover and an overhaul. I think they're really close to being a team that might not be a Stanley Cup favorite, but at least a team that can contend for it.
The Yinzers they're going to be like, this is bullshit. This is the most rational podcast we've ever heard. They want trading Letang. They want Sullivan fired. This is unacceptable.
Amen.
Look, I'm all about the logic and the rationality. So.
Well, listen, Danny, thank you so much for being on again. It was awesome to have you as the dog. Eddie, you're gonna have to edit all that out. Edit all of it out.
The dog's going, guys.
It's all good. We're wrapping up.
Go
ahead, Eddie.
This is the Powerless 412 Sports Talk podcast. So they'll deal with it.
With the puppy dog. Danny, just real quick, let everybody know where they can find your work on Twitter, on Penn's blog, and your YouTube. Just plug it all.
Yeah, so I write for Penn's blog. You can find their Twitter at Penn's blog. And then my personal Twitter account is at Shirey Irving. And just in case you didn't know, that's a play on Kyrie Irving's name. I don't even watch the NBA or like basketball, but I
just thought you were Irish. I ain't gonna lie. Yeah.
Yeah, so I get a lot of questions about that, but that's where it comes from. And then I also have a YouTube channel where I do video breakdowns of Pens highlights. You can just find that at Danny Shirey.
Yes.
And, that's all I got for you guys.
All right, man.
And honestly, you got to, like, just my last little plug, you have got to follow Danny's YouTube channel. His breakdowns are awesome. They're quick. That's the great thing about him. He doesn't spend 15, 20 minutes breaking down every minute little detail. He's quick with it. He makes it make sense. It's really breaking it down to hockey for idiots for people like me. It makes it make sense. It's good. You got to go follow him. So as soon as you're done watching this episode, run over to that YouTube channel, follow Danny, make sure you're in the know with all his stuff.
All right, guys. For Eddie P, for Danny, I'm Mad Chad. We'll see you next week.
For this one, who's making all the noise.
Thanks for listening to 412 Sports Talk. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. If you like the show, leave us a review. And be sure to tell a friend about your source for all things Pittsburgh sports. Find us on Twitter at MadChad412 and at Eddie_P_412.